up? It's your girl Prissy Solo, and I am back with another story time. We are going through the chapters in my life, and as much as I will want to do a fun story time video, which I mean I probably will. This was a story time that I just knew that I had to tell because it just was a critical part in my life, and I don't know. I've just been stalling. I just been pushing it off. It has always been something that I knew I was gonna do. I just haven't got around to it, and I think I just wanted to protect people. But to be honest with you, it's all about me, and it's all about my healing, and it's all about my truth. So we're gonna talk about it. I know it's kind of deep, and I don't really know how where I'm gonna like begin. I just know that I'm gonna start talking and tell it how it is. So let's get to it. And before we get started, please thumbs up this video. Y'all already know I feel like I'm telling y'all my business and I'm getting this real crucial. Y'all can at least thumbs up the video, okay? Subscribe if you enjoy what you hear. Well, you shouldn't enjoy it, but if you could relate, or if you could, if you respect my honesty, or just subscribe, okay? Because it's a popping channel, okay? All right. So, as by the title, that you guys already know what this video is about. So I just want to start off by saying that this person was my first boyfriend. I met them when I was a teenager, pretty young, and I feel like that's important to say because they were my first experience with love, and because they were my first boyfriend, I tolerated more than I should have, and it was just because of not really even knowing better. So I met them when I was a teenager, and we had dated, and I would say that everything was very cool at first. In the beginning, he was my first time, so even though we had really good conversations and we linked, we had good soul ties with each other. When I feel like because I had given myself to him physically and mentally, that I just was so totally in it, like in it. And so the first time that we dated, and yes, I say the first time because I had dated him for a very brief time. We had broke up because I would go catch the bus to go spend time with him, and one time in particular was the first time that he had ever like kind of showed me a different side to him. I had went over to his cousin's house, and I don't remember what the argument had started about. This is so long ago, you guys. And I remember wanting to leave, and he just would not let me leave. He would start to push me. He was just restraining me, and I just really wanted to go, and he just was being like really aggressive, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not feeling this. So once I was finally able to leave, I caught the bus back to my best friend's house, and we had ended it. We had only been together for a very short time at this time. I'm talking about like maybe a few months. And although I was very much so into him, it didn't seem like hard to let go at that point. So ended. Didn't hear from him for months until he had got incarcerated, and he had called me when he had got incarcerated. And being the young love-stricken girl that I was, we had rekindled our relationship. Once he was incarcerated, I started back talking to him. I was young, so it's not like I could visit him or give him any money or anything like that, but we started to talk often, and we got back together. So once he came home from jail this time around, our relationship had really started to take off. Excuse me, y'all know I have kids, and I am not allowed to ever close my door in my own home. Anyways, I think I was saying that we had got back together after he had got out of prison, and then now this time it was a lot more serious. We were dating. I started to spend like almost every day with him, and I'm trying to remember the first time that he had ever physically hit me. I don't know. I can't recall exactly. I remember it just being like, it's been so long, and it's so many different incidents, because it literally had became my life at one point. So I'm gonna get into it. So I don't remember how, but at one point I ended up getting pregnant, and it seemed like I remember that it was prior to me getting pregnant. I remember it being like rough housing, like sometimes, you know what I mean, and to that certain type of extent. And I remember already seeing like jealousy in terms of like wanting to tell me how long I could be out with my friends and what I could wear, just like things like that nature. But it wasn't really bad. It wasn't, and I know that sounds bad, but it wasn't really like red flag alert, like, like, um and if it was red flags, to be honest with you, I was just in love. And that's all I really knew. And I had been through so much stuff in my life, you guys, and I had never had somebody that literally I felt like knew me and knew everything, like everything, and had my back. So I just wrote it out. And so when I became pregnant, that's when I noticed the increase in being controlling, because when I was pregnant, I was still very much young. So I just was not in a mature state of like, nesting and preparing to be a mom. I still wanted to go out. I still was hanging out with my friends. I still was stealing. And he didn't want me doing those things, of course. I mean, I shouldn't have been doing them anyways, but he would just go about it just really just very like physical, like controlling and whatnot. Like, I just recall several incidents when I was pregnant where, I was choked. I was embarrassed. I mean, I couldn't tell you guys how many times I had gotten embarrassed by him being out in public and being places or in front of my friends, and he would put his hands on me. And we would fight, and just stupid things like being paranoid if he was going to be someplace, because he was going to flip out because I was there. And it just got bad, y'all. When I say it got bad, it got bad. I just remember there was a time when I just remember there was a time in particular. We were at my girlfriend's house, and I was staying at my girlfriend's house, and we were practically living together, but we weren't living together because we didn't have our own spot. And we got into a fight, as we always do. And the bad thing about it is, you guys, we would have a lot of incidents where people were around, and I so bad wanted somebody to help me. I so bad wanted somebody to say something to him and to stop him, but it was so normalized because everybody else that was around was either doing the same thing to their chick, or it was happening to them. So they just wouldn't do nothing about it. You know what I mean? They wouldn't say anything. They wouldn't check him about it, because they too was going through the same thing. It was just so normalized, you guys. Like, and at this time, my parents were very heavy on drugs. Hence why I was staying at a friend's house, pregnant. And so and at this point, I had already had brothers that had physical altercations with him or arguments with him. And I just did not want to involve anybody else in my shit, because I got myself so far into this, and I felt like it was, you know what I mean? Like, how dare I get my brothers into something? Like, you know what I mean? Like, when they already tried to have my back. And not just that, when you're in a domestic violence relationship, it's a lot of protecting that goes on. Like, there would be times where early on in the relationship, we had gotten into a fight, like I told you, at my mother's house. And I had one of my older brothers there, and my older brothers heard it, and he came out with a knife, literally trying to stab my boyfriend at the time. And I was just like, no, no, no. Like, then he's like, did he hit you? And I'm like, no. Just trying to cover up for him, just not wanting stuff to go bad. I wouldn't tell my parents. There was a time where just protecting, and so there was this time where I was telling you guys that I was at my friend's house, and it was at this point it had turned into every day. I was pretty further much along in the pregnancy. We were spending every day with each other, and it became every day. And it was to the point where like my days were predictable. Um, my days were just predictable, and I just knew that at some point, that was gonna be something, and I used to always tell him, like, like, I'm gonna leave you, like, one day I'm gonna leave you. And I said it so many times that I feel like that he didn't even take me seriously. I mean, I couldn't blame him because I said it so many times and I didn't do it. I just knew that I was gonna do it. I just didn't know when I was going to do it, because it just seemed like it was so many people around him that was enabling it, as well as my circle, that I couldn't escape him. Like, for example, I'm staying at my friend's house. We get into a physical altercation. I call the police. Okay. So at this point, later on in my pregnancy, I started to call the police on him. And literally, like, he would get out the next day. So this time in particular, I called the police on him, and my best friend is there, and her dude, and she was also in a violent relationship. So I'm not gonna go into details, but the police took him or whatever. And they took me to the hospital because I was pregnant, and I told them, like, I was worried about my baby because it was a physical altercation. And they were like, you're fine, but if you really want to go, you can go. And literally at the hospital, you guys, I'm lying about who this man is. I'm even having conversations with him still, like, just very so much, like, still stuck in the turmoil of it all, you know what I mean? And so that was one of the few many times that I had called the police. He had literally got out the next day. So the next day we get into another physical fight. I called the police. I called, no. I got back from the hospital, and I'm staying at my best friend's house. So I tell her, like, I don't want him coming around, like, you know what I mean? Because even when I had talked to him on the phone in the hospital, it just didn't seem like he was very remorseful. And so I'm upstairs, and he's there, and I'm just like, what the fuck with her? I'm just like, what the hell? Like, why would you let him back in the house? And so he's mad at me and wants to, because I called the police on him, so he wants to fight again. And so we actually get into it again. And at this time, I just remember feeling so like nobody had my back, like, because I'm just like, why would you let him back in this house? You know what he does to me. Like, I literally called the police on him. Like, why? Like, what? Like, so I just felt so alone, you guys, because I'm already living at her house because of things not being good at home, and then I just could not escape this man. So the second time, you guys, there was never a time where he sat in jail long. He would literally get out the next day, like, and be even more mad that I called the police on him. There were so many times that if I called the police on him, that his cousins and stuff would say to me, like, oh, basically, like, I'm not respecting the code because I'm calling the police. Like, basically, like, you're not ever supposed to involve the police. Like, I remember at one point his father even saying to me, like, like, basically, like, you got brothers, like, you do street justice, like, we don't do justice with the police. And I'm just like, what do you do when like, it never stops, it never ends? Like, what do you mean? Like, y'all don't have my back, y'all not stopping him, I can't physically stop him, I'm not about to keep involving my brothers who are in and out of prison, literally in and out of jail themselves, like, with this idiot that I choose to freaking procreate with, like, like, I chose him, like, and so you guys, there's so many different incidents where things got physical. Like I said, it became an everyday thing. I remember one time that it had got very ugly, and was when after I had the baby. Okay, so the whole physical abuse continued throughout my whole entire pregnancy. A lot of people knew. Like I said, it was just kind of like a accepted thing. I knew that I didn't want to be with him once I was towards the end of my pregnancy. I knew that once I had the baby, I was completely done, because it had gotten to a point, like I said, my days were predictable. I was low. I was so low. I was physical abuse. First of all, it wasn't just physical. It was a lot of mental abuse too. And I just, to be honest with you guys, my confidence had just became a zero. I was just at my wit's end. Like, I was depressed. I was literally depressed, and I used to pray all the time over my stomach because I was just so worried because of I cried so much during my pregnancy. I was so worried about my fucking baby. I was just like, he's gonna be so emotionally wrecked because I'm a mess. My pregnancy is not a happy one. I am so depressed. I'm crying every day. I'm physically fighting. Um, it was just like, like I just didn't have anything I felt like to look forward to other than the baby, and I was just so worried about, you know, it becoming too much. And so one thing about it though, he was very, very excited about the child. He was very excited about the pregnancy. He was with me my entire pregnancy. But our fighting was so bad, you guys, that literally at my baby shower, we had not had talked days prior to that because of a physical altercation. And I had to literally beg him, like when he showed up, like to be on his best behavior. He did not help me out physically with my baby shower at all. When he would get upset with me, I'll get into that. Okay, so fast forward. I have the baby. It seemed like the baby brought peace at first. It seemed like the baby it put things on it brought peace in the relationship. It was a very happy time, and there actually was a point where I was considering us staying together just because we were happy. We were just very happy, and but it was short lived. Literally maybe a month in or so. I don't recall. Like I said, this has been a while, and it had became my life, so I can't just verbatim just know like exactly how old the baby was. But I just remember he used to always tell me, in his mind he was making me tough. He felt like he's making me strong, he's making me tough. So he will always tell me to figure it out. Like if I say, oh, I need help with like one time in particular, we were washing up the baby. You guys know like those bathtubs, those ones you can lift up and stuff for the kids. You can put inside the bathtub, or you can just like have it on the ground. And I was like, he was sitting next to me. We were bathing the baby, and I had asked him for some help to some type of capacity where I needed help. And he was just like, what would you do if I wasn't here? Figure it out. Like, do it. Like, do it on your own. And although, you guys, I was broken, and although like we fought all the time, and I wasn't stronger than him, I wasn't like a punk. Like, it wasn't just like he would say these things and I would just like curl up and cry. Like, I would cry afterwards, but I definitely would be combative right then and there. So I said some slick shit, angry. It actually even got into a point where, to be honest with you guys, sometimes I would even hit him first just to beat him to the punch because I already knew it was coming. You know what I mean? So, not, I didn't at this particular time, but he was just like, so I said something slick back, and we got into a fight, like, and, we got into a physical fight, and we're not even in our own home. And I just remember you guys being so over the bullshit that I went and got a knife, right? And I'm literally trying to cut him. And I felt like, for me, I felt like I just wanted him to hurt the way I was hurting. Like, I was just so beat up that I was just like, I just wanted him to hurt like how I was hurting. And of course, I could not make contact with him. He took the knife from me. Anytime I would try to use physical. So if you guys wanted to know, like, why didn't you been there? Because now I just thought about something. There was a time that I also had tried to use a weapon on him before I was even pregnant. We were at my parents' house. We were arguing in the garage. I had bought some mace. I had literally, he had hit me, and I had pulled the mace out, and I had maced him. But when I had maced him, I had ran. And when I ran through the crowd, the cloud of mist, and I had breathed in the pepper spray. So I'm coughing, you guys. I'm coughing, and I'm just crying. And he was just like, basically, like, it got to a point where he started helping me, and he was just like, you're so dumb, you're so stupid, you thought this was gonna fucking work. Now look at you, like, you're hurt, you're the one that's hurt, and all this kind of stuff. And he ended up helping me, but he was telling me that after he was done helping me, he was gonna whoop my A for spraying him, or trying to spray him with some mace. So I took off running, and I literally, you guys, me and my best friend went all the way to the park and hid out at the park at night just to avoid going back home, my own home with my parents, from this man. So that was just a little flashback. So back to the fast forward. So he took the knife from me. I'm crying. I'm just so sad. And so I had faked, or did I really? I couldn't remember. I had faked. No, I faked drinking bleach. And like taking pills for whatever reason. I was just trying to. I think I was just trying to get him just to kind of like realize the place that he had taken me to and just to fall the fuck back. I just wanted him to feel like, like I pushed her to this point because of how I am, and like something's got to give. And like I said, you guys, like it was crazy because it was the type of love that we were really deep in love, and I can tell that he genuinely loved me. He just did not know how to love me properly. You know what I mean? Like, and it got to a point where I was just like, he's going to hurt me more, and it's not going to be intentional. And he's the type like that will accidentally kill me and then be crying and broken hearted at my funeral. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I'm not gonna give him that opportunity. So at this time, my baby is a baby. I had enough of home. Home was not home. Um, so I moved out. No. Before I moved out, it had got very ugly. So this is why I said, this is what I meant when I said home wasn't home. Um, my parents were just so out of it, you guys. And, I think there was a point where he was enabling them. And that also drew me apart from him because, I was really going through it with my parents being strung out on drugs really bad. So, and he knew it, and he knew how I felt. I vented to him. He knew he would give me advice about it. And so when there was times that I had suspected that he would help enable my parents, if you know what I mean. But I'm not trying to, that's a whole different story, so I'm not trying to go too much into that. So that really had drew, like, it made like a disdain for me. Like, it made me really just turned off from him because my parents weren't even having my back to the extent that I wish they would have, because they had dealings with him themselves. And they just would kind of just stay out of it. If it wasn't in their face, they just didn't deal with it. And granted, it was never in their faces, but it was in their homes, So there was a time that, oh yeah, okay, so yeah, so never mind. So my baby was born. I had started working. Okay, my baby's a baby, and baby, and I had just started working, and he was so jealous and insecure. You guys, we did not have a car. I used to catch the bus to work. It got to a point where they changed my shift, and I had to be at work sooner than the bus started to, basically be en route. And so I had decided to start catching a ride with a coworker who lived across the street from me. It was a dude, and so I had told him about it, and literally like 2-3 days in, he just started acting like really just funny. And when I say funny, you guys, he was making it hard for me. I would come home from work, and as soon as I come home from work, oh, you got to do this with the baby and this with the baby and woo woo woo. And I'm just like, wow, like I just really literally like walked through the door. Oh, so what? Woo woo, like just super negative. And I just knew he was mad because of my my new independence. I think he started to feel like, I maybe had something going on with the coworker, which is BS. I definitely did not. And he would just make it hard on me, and he would tell me he was going to make it hard on me, and it was to the point where he was threatening to do something to the coworker, like telling me that he was going to do something to the coworker, and just making it super hard for me. So so at some point I stopped working because I didn't have a way to work. And when I got my first paycheck, we went shopping. Like literally tore them all down. I bought him whatever he wanted. I got whatever I wanted. Like just ran it up, right? And we come home from the mall. Like I said, we would have good times. We would have really good times, and I think that that's what kept, like, even though I knew that this is what I wanted, and it wasn't safe for me, and it wasn't healthy. It was just like Vivian Green said, it was an emotional roller coaster. It had its highs and it had its lows, but the lows were just really bad. But when we were good, it just seemed like, this is who I'm supposed to be with. And I just loved our family, and I just knew he loved me. At least I thought so. and his son. So there was a time, okay. So there was a time when we got back from the mall, and I had suspected him of cheating, but I never had proof. Like I've never like physically caught him. He would always deny. And so I had went through his stuff. Like I had somehow went through like his Facebook messages, and there was a message from abroad for her sister, and I had confronted him about it, and he was like, "Oh, that's for my cousin." And at this point, I was look, listen. At this point, he had cousined me out. He had used his cousins for so many different excuses in the past that at this point, I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna hit her up myself. And when I went, you guys, when I went and got my phone to go hit this girl up myself, he slapped me, right? So as soon as he slaps me and tussles with me about taking the phone, I go tell my parents that were in the next room. I'm like, he just put his hands on me, like he needs to leave, he needs to go. So my stepdad comes down and he's like, you know what, like go ahead and leave, like you need to go ahead and go. And so he grabs all the stuff that I had just bought him that day and my phone. And I'm just like, no, like fighting with him, like, no. And he like literally gets out the door with the stuff that I like bullied me for the crap I just bought him, right? And my phone, he takes my phone. So I'm calling him, like, bring me back my phone, give me back my stuff, and woo woo. And he's like, FUB and woo woo, like, come get it yourself then, and click, hang up, stop answering the calls. So he had left everything, because like I said, we were playing house. So he had stuff, like not a whole bunch of stuff. He just had like a few pairs of like shoes or whatever, and like pants, like at my house. So he took everything that was new, but left his old stuff. So I went and took the clothes and the shoes, and I threw it in the pool. Because like I said, you guys, even though I was getting my A beat on the regular basis, I was also fighting too. Like I was also, like, to be honest with you, I was always a fighter prior, but I felt like he took me to different levels of crazy, if you know what I mean. When you're dealing with a crazy person, sometimes it just like you have to out crazy their crazy, if that makes any sense. So like I said, there's certain type of stories that's starting to pop up in my head. So if I kind of like go, there's really not nowhere to go with it, because like I said, it became my everyday. So okay, so now at this point he's gone, he's out the house, he's not coming back, whatever. So I had like, I don't remember how many days had passed, and he was trying to come see our son. And I was just like, no, you're not coming. At this point, nobody was home. And he had already used to like use, no, I haven't gotten there yet. So, he like starts, breaking down my parents' door. No cap, you guys. This man breaks my freaking parents' door in and physically assaults me